Today's event will provide the understanding and adapting to the challenges and opportunities in a rapidly accelerating microfinances and NBS marketplace through knowledge sharing and collaboration. Before we start the event, I request the esteemed dignitaries for the inaugural session, Mr. Mukesh Gandhi, Mr. P. Satish, Mr. Mahesh Thakkar and Mr. Rakesh Kumar to kindly step on the dais, please. We extend a very warm welcome to all the esteemed dignitaries. Can we have a big round of applause for all of them? They possess highly expertise knowledge in their field. I would now like to request Mr. Gautam Naveen, the organizer of today's event from P2B Infomedia, to extend the warm welcome to everyone.
Good morning, everybody. Is this working? Yeah. So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to second Mind India 2018 Summit on NBFCs and microfinance. I, on behalf of my colleague Ashish Srivastava and Anupam Gupta and B2B as an organization, would like to thank you all for your participation and the dignitaries of the dais for the inaugural session for their kind presence in this event. So, I would like to make few announcements here that there are few changes that our speaker from SIDBI and NABARD, due to some unexpected circumstances and requirement of their professional life, they are not able to come attend this inaugural session and participate in this. But however, they have promised that they will come in the evening time. So we are expecting that they will be present and we will be able to interact with them in the evening. And there are some, I also like to share some instances which happened to us while organizing this summit, that we approached 5-6 organizations, government organizations, and all of them have said, okay, we are participating, but all of a sudden we also came to that they have got transferred. So we got scared that should we approach others or not, whether they would get transferred or not. So, but we all know that this happens while we organize such kind of events. It is tough to have all in one single platform at one single time. But we thank you again for your participation, and we hope that this second Mind India will be a fruitful and wonderful for all of you. With this, I request Dhwani to take this forward. Thanks a lot. Thank you all for your kind support and participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gautamji, for the warm welcome. We appreciate that. When the eminent dignitaries have come from far and wide to share their expertise knowledge, I request Mr. Gautam Naveen to welcome them with floral bouquet. To Mukesh C. Gandhi. Thank you very much, sir. We have Mr. P. Satish with us. We have Mr. Mahesh Thakkar with us. And also we have Mr. Rakesh Kumar with us. Thank you, Gautamji, for doing the honors. Before we commence this informative day, we wish to seek the blessings of Almighty. I request the dignitaries on the dais to kindly step forward for lamp lighting. Thank you very much, gentlemen. May we always be showered with lots of blessings of Almighty. Thank you, everyone. I would now request Mr. Mukesh C. Gandhi, Director, Mass Financials, to share with us the expertise knowledge of his and give loads of information which will be highly useful to all of us.
Mr. Rakesh Kumar, CEO Light Microfinance, Mr. P. Satish, Executive Director Sadhan, Mr. Mahesh Thakkar, Director General FIDC, and ladies and gentlemen. I feel privileged to welcome all of you to this conference organized by B2B Info Media, and we are really grateful for them to bringing us on the one platform, MFI and NBFCs together. So normally we are the parts of the industries, but very few occasions are there we come together and we discuss the issues of the industries. But today you will have a lot of presentations for the development of these industries. There will be a panel discussion, so I hope all of you will enjoy throughout the day. Now, if I take you to the evaluation of these industries, the NBFCs in India is not a new concept. Before 30 years, that is from 1988, the lot of NBFCs started in this country, and that particular point of time they were unregulated entities. And many of you must be knowing that a very big name like Lord Finance, CF Finance, Cipla, LP Finance. So all manufacturers started NBFCs and looking at the ample opportunity, because at that particular point of time banks were not funding the consumption aspect. So for purchase of car or for purchase of scooter, these people started these NBFCs and they did the roaring business for years together. And ultimately in the year 1995, RBI came with the regulation because all the players faced a lot of difficulties. And the reason for facing the difficulties, the common denominator was the growth. The growth at which they grew was phenomenal growth. And in lending business, taking the growth is the easiest thing. Maintaining the quality of the portfolio is very, very important. So at that particular point of time, people forget this fundamental and they went for the phenomenal growth during that particular period, and ultimately they faced the consequence of it, and majority of the people were the deposit taking entity and they started failing in their commitments, and finally RBI came with the regulations, and in 1995 they made it compulsory for NBFCs to get registered with RBI. And at that particular point of time RBI was very particular about giving the licenses for deposit taking NBFCs. And then gradually all these NBFCs vanished from the sector and new entities started coming in. And then they again started the same thing and gradually they grew it. If you look at the current scenario, you will now find the NBFCs like Bajaj Finance, which is a 1 trillion market cap. So you will find that this is the size of the NBFCs which can be existing in this market. So likewise, a lot of big players are there in the market and they are finding a lot of opportunity to serve the customers. The NBFCs have niche sector because they will be providing the services to those who are untouched by the bank, or rather their needs were not fulfilled by the bank fully. So they got a lot of opportunity. Likewise, thereafter the MFI sector started, and particularly from 2006 onwards, the MFI increased like anything. When Muhammad Yunus get the Nobel Prize for this microfinance lending, particularly thereafter, this sector grew again phenomenally. And if you look at this sector growth, and if you see the consequences they made, with the history repeated, because in 2010 there was the Andhra crisis and this sector faced that particular crisis because everybody grew very fast in a particular territory and ultimately they failed to recover from the customers. So one thing we have to learn is that ample opportunities are there in this sector, but you have to grab it very gradually. You have to do the businesses where you can manage it, because in lending activity, growth can be done easily. If you eye growth, you will get the growth. But at the same time, the quality is very important, and if you don't look at the quality aspect of the portfolio, then you will be failing in your duty, and ultimately you will fail yourself and you will fail your lender also. So after 2010, again this sector has started coming up, and that was a great thing to happen for MFI sector. And now what is happening is that the NBFCs and MFI, they are working hands in hands, because we ourselves are experiencing it. The very small MFI, they get the capital, but getting the debt is a bit difficult in initial period. So in that particular period, NBFCs who are grown up, who have the resources, they help these MFI sector and they are growing very nicely. So going forward, there is an ample opportunity, but we did not forget the history. History repeats itself. So long the people behave themselves, so long they go for the calibrated growth, so long they maintain the quality of the assets, then the opportunity is tremendous. Otherwise, hiccups will come as it happened in the past. With that, I end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving your inputs. I request Gautamji to kindly hand over the memento to sir, because he wishes to go early because of certain engagements. Can we have a bigger round of applause for sir? Thank you, sir, for being with us. It was a pleasure having you over here. I now request Mr. P. Satish, Executive Director, Southern, to kindly deliver his speech and share with us the knowledge he possesses. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Gandhi, Mr. Kumar, and Mr. Thakkar, who are on the dais along with me, and friends. So this is, as Mr. Gandhi was mentioning, that it's apt that we have a forum where microfinance and NBFCs have been brought together. But if you look at the microfinance sector as such, in the entire financial sector space of the country, it's still a very young industry. If you compare with the grandfather of Indian banking, like State Bank of India, which is more than 200 years old, starting with the Presidency Bank of Bengal. Compared to that, the microfinance sector is very quite young. If you look at the first NBFC MFI which was registered was Basics only in 1996. That is just 22 years before. Not much, not even a quarter century. Of course, this city of Ahmedabad has a deep connection with microfinance in the sense that Ilaben started the Seva Bank here in this city in 1974, and when all of us, when we refer to the first seeds of microfinance in India, we start off with Seva Bank in 1974. So that has started, but the microfinance sector as such took off only after the Basics was registered as an NBFC MFI in 1996, and various other institutions came into play into this sector after, I can say that after 2001 onwards. If you look at the way the sector has grown, in the initial phases, all these institutions started off as NGOs or societies, and the growth was very small in the sense that they were able to access only limited amounts of loanable resources because they were not financial institutions in the real sense of the term, because they couldn't have capital and they couldn't leverage their capital for further financial inflows. So slowly, many of them found that the model of NBFC as an MFI is a good model for growth, and that also took off in a big way in 2002 onwards, because many of the banks, especially the private sector banks, felt that by partnering with MFIs, they can fulfill their priority sector targets and also to reach out to a larger number of customers. And with that, a lot of funding started going into the sector, and there was a rapid growth. But the growth was more in the southern part of the country. It was particularly pronounced in the state of Andhra Pradesh, because Hyderabad was known as the center of microfinance in India. It has its own side effects, because always unbridled growth brings some issues with that. There were some issues even in Andhra Pradesh, and even in 2006, because there was a lot of growth in the sector. And in 2010, the sector received a lot of what we can say the negative impact because of the law brought out by the then government in Andhra Pradesh, restricting the operations of microfinance institutions. It had an effect on the MFIs not only in Andhra Pradesh but in other states also. But one thing which this shows is that microfinance is a sector which has a lot of effect of the external environment, both the socio-political environment and also the economic environment. So if there is something which goes negative in the environment, it's likely to affect the sector. But at the same time, unlike many other components of the financial sector, this sector has the resilience again to bounce back within a short period of time, because this is a sector which is close to the people and their needs and their financial needs, which they require almost on a daily ongoing basis. So that we can see from the 2010-11 was the period of crisis in the sector, but by 2013 the sector was already up and running, and it was able to reach and bypass the lending figures which were there previously, and large number of players came into the scenario after that. That shows that the basic fundamentals of financing which this sector has taken up are there sound, and those foundations are not really shaken thoroughly by any external environment, and that environment will be able to affect the sector only for a short period of time. The same thing we saw during demonetization also. All of us know that their effect in terms of cash crunch and people, especially those below the poverty line and those who are in an unorganized sector, lost the incomes and jobs widespread across the country. And a large part of the clientele of the microfinance sector also is from the unorganized sector, who get unorganized sector's incomes. So effect was naturally bound to be there. But fortunately, despite that, across large parts of the country, the institutions did not really get influenced by the impact of that, but only in certain places where there was a play of the external political environment, the collection efficiency of the sector was affected, and that too with a set of only about half a dozen institutions. Then there again, there are a lot of issues which have to do with the way the institutions function, the way the institutions keep up their interaction with the clientele and all. So it shows that, and there are large parts of the country where there are no effect of that. Like if you take a state like Bengal, Northeast, Odisha and all, there are no effect even though the clients face their cash crunch even in the initial days. Because even in the initial first week of demonetization, I was with the microfinance branches and clients in Bengal. I found that everyone coming there with money and repaying and all, because all of them had small loans and small installments. So there was no issue with the client behavior towards the institutions, because I would say that the client behavior towards financial institutions in terms of keeping up the credit contract is more stronger in the microfinance sector than in the other external sector of the financial industry. And if you had seen what the Reserve Bank Deputy Governor was referring to the day before yesterday, of the sanctity of the credit contract, that I feel with my experience, long years of experience with the Reserve Bank, NABARD and the microfinance sector, I felt that that sanctity is respected more by the microfinance client than the clients in the other parts of the financial sector. What I can only say is that the negative fallout was there in some regions, but overall we saw a lot of issues in the first quarter, the January-March quarter in 2017. But by June, the sector was again back to normalcy. Even the portfolio at risk was reduced. And now if you look at least immediately in January and March, the recovery percentages fell in certain regions of the country. But by June, portfolio of risk was only around 5 or 6% across, and that too mainly contributed by only about half a dozen institutions. If we had taken away, separated those institutions, actually the portfolio of risk for the sector as a whole was less than 1%. And if you look at, then questions are again, since the inaugural session is with regard to the sector and as well as the future course, the questions are always raised, what is the future of the microfinance sector in India? So if you want to talk about that, first let us have a look at the data. If you look at the data which Sadhan compares annually, the entire sector as of 2016 March, the portfolio of the sector was 63,000 crores. It comprised of all the microfinance institutions. And between 2016 March and 2017 March, there are important events. A large number of MFIs became small finance banks. So technically they went out of the microfinance sector into the banking sector. And we also had the effect of demonetization. So that was bound to be there because all these 8 MFIs which became small finance banks accounted for almost, I would say 20 to 25% of the portfolio. So March 2017, the total portfolio was 46,000 crores of the microfinance sector. If you compare with 63,000 crores of March 2016. But now we again come back to the latest figures. December 2017 figures are, the sector has a portfolio of 50,000 crores, despite all the small finance banks going away. And if we estimated the quarter-on-quarter growth, which we saw from the December quarter as compared to the September quarter, our quarter-on-quarter growth was around 15%. So if we extrapolate that, because March figures we have yet to consolidate and we had to share. So our estimate is that March 2018 figures should be overtaking the figures of March 2016 by a couple of thousand crores. That's our estimate. And With regard to, and this figure is excluding all the small finance banks. It doesn't include their figures at all. And if you look at the clientele, March 2016 clientele of this entire sector was 40 million clients, and March 2018 we feel that the client figure would be around 35 million, excluding the huge clients which went to the small finance banking sector. So I would say that the sector's future is bright. There is a need for the services of this sector. So as long as that need is there, felt need is there at the grassroots level, this sector will continue to grow and flourish. Why am I so confident that there is such a huge demand for this sector? Because I would say that there is a huge and growing appetite for loans which are quick, small and unsecured. Who are going to give these loans? Mainstream banks are not going to give these loans. So the alternative is only the microfinance sector, because they have perfected the art of giving a quick loan, a small loan and also a loan which is unsecured. And they have known how exactly to get 100% recovery from an unsecured loan. So with that, when you see, I think the growth of the sector is assured. Yes, now many players in the mainstream financial sector have realized that microfinance is a good business. So 3 or 4 private sector banks have microfinance verticals which almost mimic a microfinance institution's operations. So, and they are all very happy with that portfolio which is growing. I would not like to take the names of those banks, but their portfolios are growing in the microfinance sector. And small finance banks, if they retain their microfinance wings and focus, they will continue to cater to that, just as Bandhan has done. Bandhan has separated its microfinance vertical from the normal banking vertical, and it continues to deal with its erstwhile microfinance clients. So what we see from this is there is a need for partnerships between the microfinance institutions and banks and NBFCs. And I'm glad that Mr. Gandhi was mentioning that a large number of small MFIs are accessing their lendable resources from bigger NBFCs because banks are slow in lending to small institutions, because unless you tick box the various norms which a banking institution has, it's very difficult for a small institutions to access those funding. And also many microfinance institutions are becoming BCs of mainstream banks, and that is a win-win situation for both the banks as well as the MFIs, because without the portfolio being on the books, the MFIs are able to expand their business, and the bank ensuring that its priority sector lending targets are being met with near 100% recovery. The banks are able to make use of this portfolio of microfinance institutions. But what I would only say is that big NBFCs and banks should be more liberal in lending to the microfinance institutions so that they can carry on their on-lending activities. Because if you look at, even though there are some operational issues with regard to collection at institutional level, at least during this demonetization crisis, I have not seen any microfinance institution defaulting on its loan installments to its funding institution, be it a bank or an NBFC. And even in the case of the Andhra crisis, because the portfolios were huge, the CDR mechanism was employed by the bigger banks to overcome that. But otherwise, all the institutions concerned there adhered to the norms, and some of them even didn't avail that, and they repaid back the entire outstanding to the banks, like SKS, which is now known as Bharat Financial Inclusion. It didn't go in for the CDR mechanism, but even though it had repayment issues at its level, it was fully discharged its obligation to its bankers. So I would only tell the mainstream bankers that have faith in the microfinance institutions and the sector. May not be in other sectors, I don't want to make, because a lot of issues we are seeing in the banking sector in the last 6 months. I don't want again to go into that, but I would say that compared to that, the microfinance institutions are a better clientele, and you will be assured of 100% recovery. I can say as a sector representative representing the entire spectrum of microfinance institution, I can tell the bankers and the funding NBFCs that your money with the microfinance institution will always be safe. And the questions are also raised with regard to the poverty and microfinance. But I would only say that there is no direct correlation, because even in a state like Punjab, where only 5% of the people are below the poverty line, microfinance is doing well. One of our member institutions based in Jalandhar, Midland Microfinance, has a very healthy portfolio. Because again, I come back to that. Because even people who are well off require sometimes small amounts of money in a quick pace and which are unsecured. And only the microfinance institution can provide that. So with that background, I would say that the future for the microfinance sector, even if a large part of the sector is evolving into banks, because that is a natural progression, it has to happen. So even if that evolution happens, the institutions are coming up, institutions are being set up, they are growing, and the future is bright, as long as everyone wants that loan which has the quality of small amount and there is no collateral for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for those valuable inputs. We surely will keep that in mind. Now I humbly request Mr. Mahesh Thakkar, Director General, Finance Industry Development Council, to deliver his speech to the august audience, sir.
Good morning, friends. Mr. Gautam from B2B, the organizers, proud to thank all of you for inviting FIDC to make a presentation on the NBFC sector, much of which has been covered by Mr. Satesh for MFIs, which is also part of NBFC. Satesh, Mukesh Gandhi, my colleague, who has left for the urgent work, Rakesh Kumar and other colleagues, my members from Gujarat Finance Companies Association, our newsletter which is there since 10 years, Mr. N.M. Mukhi is our editor, and my colleagues who have come all the way from Jalandhar and many other places. I will come and thank all of you to be present here. What I'll do is make a short presentation on the areas or issues which have not been covered by the presentation on MFIs. I'll give you the role, regulation issues and the way forward. I'll concentrate more on the way forward, what currently is happening in NBFC sector and what is in future. That will take care of the regulations as well as the business, which is more important. Things are very good, but there are constraints always. And since I am connected with the sector since the last 32 years as the founder president of the association, I'm in touch with all the regulators, all the constituents, all the NBFCs and funding institutions. There are a lot of new developments happening, which I will take more of it in the later part. Okay, I'll just rush through the earlier slides which talk of the statistics which have been covered here. Now talking of the NBFCs, we have the figures of March 31, 2017. 179 deposit taking NBFCs only left. As you know, since last 6 decades, we had a history of deposit taking NBFCs. We had more than 60,000 crore deposit earlier, reduced to less than 2,000 crore today. RBI somehow does not encourage that, and we as an NBFC sector, as also the representative body, have accepted this fact, because all in all, it will not be encouraged in the future. and most of the NBFCs are phasing out. We have in last 2 years suggested to RBI the alternative means of funding to be made available to NBFCs, much of which has been accepted in last 2 years, which I'll again cover it in the later part. Now we have other deposit, I said this was deposit taking NBFCs, which we call as A category. We have these non-deposit taking divided into 2 categories, NDSI and not systematically important, where asset size is less than 500 crores, more than 12,000 companies, maybe 11,000 are there, and 220 companies are there, which is NBFC, NDSI. This regulations for NBFC, NDSI and deposit taking NBFCs, however small, are pari passu with the banks. You know how even if they are small size, they are taking public deposit or this NDSI, they are regulated as much as almost are regulated. So this is the statistics. Now what has been our performance? Whatever happens, whatever mess has happened in the banking sector, let's not discuss it today. In last 4-5 years, everybody will let me, including Satish, we have done very well, and NBFCs and MFIs both. Out of our own positive approach, our own promptness, flexibility and other advantages, the cost and, as I said, different means of funding, no collateral and funding based on track record, credit bureau, credit report, as well as the receivables. We have done very well. On an average, we have grown on all the parameters which are listed here, 15 to 20% on year to year. And maybe we've taken advantage of the policies of banks. Growth, as you said, the aggregate balance sheet size also 15%, share capital 15%, net profit 15%, loans and advances 16%, investments also grown around 12%, return on assets, which is always more than 2% here, equity is 7% here, but actually it's more than 10%, and mind you, 7, 8, 9, 10% tax-free return on equity is a great investment. NPA is of course 2.3 is mentioned, but maybe you can take it 3% as of now, compared to between 6 to 9%, or we never know, of the banks. Every day the new banks keep on coming in the fold of the problems. CRAR, which is prescribed by RBI to be 15%, we are much way ahead of that, 22%, you know. That shows the healthy sign of the balance sheet. And the borrowings, you know, from the sector is 15, that growth also is 15%, and leverage ratio, that's 2.82, which is the ideal ratio, as you might have learned in the management studies and chartered accounting studies. What's the distribution of credit given by the NBFCs? To which sectors we get out? Industry 42%, service sector 30%, retail sector is 21%, and others maybe just 5%. Liability side, we have a 26% of the capital, which is capital plus reserves. Bank borrowings constitute 23%. Debentures, which come an ND because of the public deposit, most of the big NBFCs now cater to the debentures rather than PDs, is 21%. Commercial papers, CP is 9.5%. Others will be 20%, which will include ECBs, public deposit, pension funds. These are the new categories. Pension funds have come in ND. More than 2% they comprise today. And maybe current liabilities and provisions. On the overview side, NBFC is borrowing from the financial system. When we say the organized sector, scheduled commercial banks give 41%, AMCs and MFs, mutual funds and asset management companies 35%, pension fund, as I said, 2%, and others will be 10%. So of course, major is mutual fund and scheduled commercial bank. Insurance companies also given 20%. What's the network of the Indian financial system? As you said, today NBFCs are the third largest constituent, next only to scheduled commercial banks, AMCs and MFs. Mind you, we are above insurance, we are above FIs, we are above urban cooperative banks, pension funds and others. So if 5 years back when I was making a presentation, I would say we comprise of 5 to 6% in the financial system of the gross domestic capital formation. Today it's more than 15%. So that gives the impression that NBFCs are doing very well and they are part of the financial system. And it's high time government recognizes this and gives all the advantages. They give it to the bank for all the financial inclusion work which they are doing. Role of NBFCs, of course, is the greater role of NBFC in resource mobilization and credit intermediation, This all is known to the people. You all are there in this sector since many, many years. All the expert committees set up by the Reserve Bank of India, Ministry of Finance, credit bureaus, credit agencies, or the funding institutions have always said that NBFCs play a very positive role and they cater to the unbanked sector and the rural, semi-urban and urban areas. On the criteria, how suitable are the NBFCs in promoting the financial inclusion, which is a buzzword. They talked 10 years back that the financial inclusion, we say to the Parliamentary Standing Committee then, what the hell we are doing since last 60 years? If this is not financial inclusion, what else? Our companies like Sundaram and Shriram and many others, of course, I'm not naming them, going to the and giving to the SRTO, single truck operators and rickshawalas and other lot many people. This was financial inclusion. We went to the areas where the banks have never reached. We took the assets which were never financed. We took the second-hand asset, Banks follow us. We make microfinance and NBFC institutions. We make the customer bankable, and then they follow it. On all the four criteria, we have a very positive result. Reliability. We have 20 years of regulation since 1997 after CRB debacle. Not a single NBFC is defaulted. I asked the bank which sector has not defaulted. Any sector in the country, manufacturing, services, IT. And you know this, NBFCs come from all the different fields. No NBFC has defaulted in the last 20 years, not one rupee also. That's the reliability. Affordability to the customers, of course, it's very high compared to MFIs and local money lenders. Accessibility, as Mr. Sudhi said, we are available and go to the unbankable segment in the rural, semi-urban areas. And with the flexible terms and conditions, why we are able to lend it fast, recover also fast, because of flexible approach. We know that this time 2 months, the monsoon has not come, or there's a wedding in the family, or there's a flood, or there is a drought. We adjust the recovery models and work with him. We also give counseling to the truck operators and other entrepreneurs today as to how to improve your sellability and make the repayments. So these are the criteria on which NBFCs are par excellent compared to other people. I'll just rush to the regulation also, which is not really the subject matter for today. We have the Reserve Bank of India Act of 1934, which governs the NBFCs, which Chapter 3b mentions that the RBI is fully empowered to regulate all the NBFCs, and the guidelines are prescribed time to time by RBI since many, many years. Regulatory framework, as I said, for NBFC-D, that is deposit taking NBFCs as well as NDSI, are almost same as what is there for the banks. RBI has got the powers. I wish some of these powers that exercised in case of some of the banks also in past few months. RBI has the powers to register the NBFCs and cancel the registration, regulate or prohibit the issues of advertisement and soliciting deposits, determine policy and issue the directions, collect information relating to deposits and give directions, call for the information and give directions, mandatorily ask NBFCs to furnish statements, lay down powers and duties of auditors, prohibit acceptance of deposits, prohibit alienation of assets, file winding up petition, carry out inspection on-site, off-site, books, records, everything, For the big NBFCs, some of you must be doing, there's an inspection which goes on for days, weeks and months perhaps. And it's very stringent and the reports are also very, very big one. On the classification we discussed, we have three categories of classification. It's liability-based, activity-based and size-based. On liability-based, it is deposit taking, non-deposit, and there is third category, which is subsidiary, which is not important. That's the C category. Activity-based is very important. We had 5 categories, to 7 to 9, then RBI suddenly decided to shrink the size. But instead of that, it's gone up. Now we're today more than 11 to 12 categories, or more than that, of the NBFCs on asset size. It's asset financing NBFCs, AFCs, loan companies, investment NBFCs, infrastructure finance NBFCs. Mind you, these are all different categories. Microfinancing, factoring, CIC, that's Core Investment Company, and the 2 new one which has been prescribed in the last 1 year is P2B, an account aggregator. There are rules and regulations for them, different ones. But as we see further in the presentation, these are the important layers which you and I cannot ignore. They will perhaps change the rules of the game. On size based, as I said, for NDSI, it's 500 crores and above, where the regulations are much stringent, and some of the benefits also are given to them, like surface, which is not given to normal NBFCs. what are the key issues today, which is very important. At FIDC, you know, that is the self-regulatory organization of all NBFCs. All NBFCs into asset and loan financing. The categories which are not included are the MFIs, because there are certain and other people looking at it very well. You know, in fact, they are really the self-regulatory organization, and we have not given 50% of what they have achieved. I must compliment them. FIDC, as I said, for the asset and loan financing company, we do not include real estate players, MFIs, and the people in the stock market. Okay, and we have a huge representation in lobbying. We get invited from finance minister to RBI governor and everybody, and we keep on doing and participating in all the seminars, etc., which all of you must be knowing. What is happening is, day in and day out, we are in touch with the regulators and the key players, constituents, and the tech players, and we know the factors which are important for the NBFCs to be able to do business with the ease of business, okay? The main issues which are currently under discussion, or they are either resolved partially, are that NBFCs are not included in the official agenda of the financial inclusion. Though I said this is the buzzword, you know, something which you and I do, it's never recognized, you know. योग तो हम वर्षों से करते थे, जब योगा वर्ड वहाँ से आया तो it became popular. But what other sadhus and all were doing? Every lending which NBFCs were doing as 7 decades was a financial inclusion. Now somehow the new word has come and they said, okay, it's a financial inclusion. But we are pioneers of the system. When I say we are not included in the official agenda, the banks could advantage मिलते हैं. ये is not given to NBFCs in all cases, even if every case is a financial inclusion. Asset-wise, geographical area-wise, terms-wise, everywhere we have the innovative ideas. Focus of Reserve Bank of India is more of a regulation than a development. You talk of SEBI, you talk of IRDA, or you talk of NHB. It's not so. All these institutions for the respective categories of financial players like National Housing Bank, SEBI and IRDA, also developers, they will further go to the other regulators like CBDT, CBEC, Ministry of Finance, Road Transport Ministry, and put their players' case. It's not so easy for RBI. We are not somehow happy that RBI is not taking care of the development part of the NBFCs as much as they are doing the restrictions. It's improving definitely, but more needs to be done. One of the biggest example will be given when I come. I can in fact give it right now. Is the Ind AS guidelines which came, you know, very funny. This has happened, never happened in the history of the financial sector. Ind AS guideline is applicable to NBFCs from 1st April 2018, and it's been deferred for banks for 1 year. And we saw it yesterday when NHB has approached MCA for deferment. Now, only thing is RBI has not approached MCA. Though RBI has got the powers to exempt NBFCs also from the guidelines, just they did not approach. Somehow it skipped before 31st March. In the transfer, as you said, you know, the officers were getting transferred. That's the main reason. And we are, as of now, maybe within 3 days the situation may change. The whole pressure is on. But as of now, it's applicable to us. So that's why I said the developmental role. They should also see the problems which we are facing in the implementation and interpretation of the Ind AS and try to defer it. And if it's not, I mean, normally we will follow the banks, you know. Banks are the big brothers in the financial sector. What restriction is not put, or the regulation requirement not put to the banks, why should it be on NBFCs? In fact, it should be after 1 or 2 or 3 years of banks. In fact, here it's the role has changed. We are first and the banks will follow. There's a lack of level playing field with banks and housing finance companies in taxation matters. It's 43D, it's TDS rules, GST, surfacing many things. For example, I've been talking about this. Some of them have been solved, but many are still pending. I'm not going into detail, but if you have any questions, either during interactive session or other sessions, we can talk it over. Fundraising is always a problem. As I said, RBI discourages public deposit, which has been our foray. Banks somehow do not lend very easily. They see us as a competitor. Even if they have started lending, the rate of interest is most important. They lend it at the price, you know, which we cannot afford to further to on lend to others. We can't take it. What's important is the banks also now, because of the burning of their hands in the corporate sector, also going to retail sector, they reach every area. So in the same market, we compete. We can compete on flexibility, we can compete on our, terms, but when ultimately interest also matters. If we really charge with a gap of more than 2-3%, it's not affordable to the customers and we suffer. So what's important, we've been asking RBI to have the separate funding institution for the NBFCs, which they have not done, but somehow indirectly, because of the Prime Minister's intervention on 30th December 2016 and thereafter in this budget by the Finance Minister, there are 4 institutions. I'll come to that in little more detail because that's the more interesting part of it. SEBI, Mudra, NABARD, NABSAMRUDI and CGTMSE. I'll talk about each one of them in little more detail later. They have come in, but is it sufficient? Answer is no. I'll talk to you about that later. Some of the state governments treat NBFCs as a money lenders. Why? If I'm registered under RBI, why should a Money Lenders Act apply to us? There is no other reason other than harassing the people, harassing the NBFCs, and just to find out if there's straight away need for all the state governments to follow that if you are RBI registered NBFC, ML Act will not apply. To all others, you can jolly well apply. We have the petitions pending in various high courts and Supreme Court for this, and I think one of the matter is coming in this month only in Kerala High Court. We've been asking to give the risk weightage. You know, today all the assets which I lend have the same risk weightage. How can it be? We've been asking some of these, there are different risk weightages for the banks, for the same assets maybe. So we've been asking commercial vehicle, all the vehicles, all the infrastructure finance infrastructure equipments to have the different risk weightages. So that again we have the CRAR in a proper place. That's not been addressed somehow. The need for formalized arrangement as the RBI should interact. There is a system. There was an informal advisory group where the bank used to interact with earlier Association of Leasing Finance and now FIDC which I had. But somehow it has missed and started just a few months back again. So we hope that this will continue. With the governor changing, the policy changes, it should not happen. You know, once the policy is there and it's working. In this informal advisory group, not only we used to raise our issues, RBI will talk to us about the concerns they have and the future regulations which they are drafting and working on it, and take our informal opinion on this, and maybe they will accept or not accept, but at least they will sound to us on that. So that is there right now. Just started, I said, 6 months back, but it should continue for a long time. But earlier it was closed for the last 8 years. One of the most important way of funding is leasing. You know, we have a leasing, hire purchase and loan. We are the pioneers in leasing. In the world over, leasing constitutes more than 10 to 30% based on the countries, in the developed countries, of the gross domestic capital formation. India is less than 5%. Somehow the leasing has been totally killed. It was very, much there in the 90s. Today it's nothing. Taxation is killed, depreciation rules are killed, service tax killed it, stamp duty killed it, GST, so it's the worst, not to talk of it. Somehow we are working on that, some of the companies, that leasing is revived, and that's the right way of to getting the foreign funding here, because they will not come and own up the asset here. They will like to get it leased, and we will come handy in for that. Funding of NBFCs, banks do not see us very seriously. They are fund getting, but again the interest is the problem. So there is a lack of linkage between banks and NBFCs, and some of the conditions they were put for the small NBFCs, particularly rating, threshold limits, which does not work. What we have been talking to RBI always has been to have a wholesaler retailer relationship between banks and NBFCs, and have the liberal bank funding norms for the NBFCs. So deposit taking is discouraged. Securitization guidelines which were there earlier now are again totally disrupted, and they are not originator friendly. Otherwise securitization was working very well for both of us. There is an asset which NBFCs have done it. They go to the banks for the on lending or securitization, which is in the priority. Banks will get a priority sector, but NBFCs will not get a status. That's, I wanted to say that banks will not get the priority sector for the if the originator is NBFC. Now, what is important is the funding to that asset, to that category of people. Whether it's through bank or through NBFC is not material, but the banks do not get, so they get discouraged to, or they charge higher interest on that. We want, if the asset is qualifying, otherwise for the banks in the priority sector, allow it, whether it's through bank or NBFC. There's a new development which is happening, which has happened just 3 days back, sir, on the co-origination model, which I'll again talk. And of course, Mudra, as I said, there are institutions which are coming up. Mudra is doing very well for MFIs. Somehow it is not done for NBFCs because of threshold limit of that 15 crores, interest rate cap, and the rating requirement. All the three needs to be done, in the category between up to 5 lakhs, perhaps MFIs are the best, but there are assets between 1 lakh, 5 lakhs, and up to 10 lakhs, where the NBFCs can do very well from borrowing from Mudra. On the taxation side, I'll just rush through because we have made a presentation in the pre-budget. Of course, this budget, nothing was accepted. We thought that 43D would be accepted, but it somehow escaped. The 43D, the provisioning norms, we are not allowed as the deduction like what's allowed with the banks. We have asked for the exemption of TDS threshold and the percentage like banks. TDS on lease rentals is very high. GST on the lease rental is the worst. There is a GST on sale of repossessed assets. It started from West Bengal, and in GST Council every time it's discussed, but West Bengal government is opposing that. And as of now, the opinion is that GST is there on the sale of repossessed assets, which is not correct because in any case the full GST has already been paid. And we asked for the higher depreciation in some of the categories of assets which was there earlier, like commercial vehicles, construction in mining equipment, etc. Because there is across the board 15% depreciation, which is not sufficient. These days, the life of the asset is not more than 5 years. Recovery avenues. This is the most important slide. We don't have the access to many of the recovery avenues. Number one is SARFAESI after 15 years or more than 10 years of lobbying, as I said, was applied. And a lot of legal implications, but they were, somehow at the last moment, two riders were put. It will apply only to the NBFCs with 500 crores and above, and more importantly, worse than that, it will apply to the asset of 1 crore and above. Now, in that case, all my retail assets are out. Somehow this 1 crore was never there. 500 crore was expected. Okay, which Babu has put it on the last moment. We never know about it. We are trying to work out for this, and let's hope this will be addressed. We do not have the access to DRTs, debt recovery tribunals. 138 is the worst. If you file this one today, you might get in 5, 6, 7 years. That was never anticipated. We went on fighting for 138 in a big way. But in Bombay, particularly, as I know, the cases, even if there are speedy trials being done, the cases take a lot of time. In fact, it should be dismissed within less than 6 months. And of course, there's a filing of application under receiver, as in Arbitration Act also. As long as the proceedings are pending, I cannot dispose of the assets. These are the recovery hassles. What are the recent developments? This is the last part of the presentation which I want to make. And as I said, one of the things, important thing is how do we grow the business? We talked of regulations, we talked of funding. We need to go ahead of the banks. What has been the traditional way of our funding? Take the asset, take the collateral. In case of NBFC, we don't take collateral because the main asset is, normally we are talking of an asset-based financing. So that asset is the security. But what ahead? Now we have been doing commercial vehicles, cars, and other assets which banks have come into. The sector with which we have to now go is the SME. Less than 20 or 30% of the SME, MSME demand has been met by the banks. NBFCs, many NBFCs have started all the way. But when you go to MSME, you can't have the traditional mode of funding. The traditional mode will be your asset, properties, and collateral. You have to go 3 things. We have in fact tied up with the World Bank Group, which does the education seminars on how to do the asset-based lending for MSMEs. And they say go for the track record of the promoters, the credit report, go for the receivables, not the assets. And at the state of the industry, of course, there are reports available. If the particular sector is doing well, the company will promoter there, and there is always a receivable. There are the orders and all that. Based on that only we will be able to fund. We have been teaching our NBFC members. We have done in last year, that's 2017, more than 7 seminars for this purpose, and many of them people have started, including small NBFCs. On the funding side, as I said, there are 4 institutions that we have come in handy. The Honorable Prime Minister in the address on 30th December 2016, when demonetization was to end, he said that NBFC should be made part of the CGTMSE guarantee schemes. So if you today lend it to MSME sector, there is a guarantee given of the recovery subject to terms and conditions, but that's not very bad conditions that your recovery will be covered. Immediately thereafter, Mudra is always there. As I said, Mudra is slow, but NBFC is very active for the MFI sector. Mudra is the three problems: the threshold of 15 crores, the rating mandatory, and that 6% cap on the interest rate. It does not work, but we are working on it with the new CEO of Mudra coming in and the finance minister announcing in this budget that Mudra needs to go to NBFCs. Will perhaps working on the new financial schemes for the NBFCs from Mudra. But NABARD has come handy. NABARD does not restrict to agriculture activities. It also gives to MSME sectors and the assets used in the rural sector. It not be agricultural equipment, it can be vehicles and many other things. NABARD also has the bureaucracy like perhaps simply that's why Mudra is slow, but NABARD is two subsidiary companies. I think there is a presentation today, NAB Samruddhi and NAB Kisan. NAB Samruddhi, if any one of you want to go to NAB Samruddhi, they are as quick as an NBFC. There are NBFCs which have got to NAB Samruddhi within less than 30 days, even much less than that, 30 days they got the funding. They have the flexible schemes and the quite competitive rates of interest. Any one of you the problem approach us directly, we will help you with that. We have the new development which is ombudsman scheme has been notified. We have the ombudsman in the four regions, Delhi, Calcutta, Madras and Bombay, and other states it's coming in. And again there is already discussed because that's a very pertinent issue. There is one issue which I said there is a Department of Financial Inclusion and Planning in RBI which is working now on co-origination model. If there is a particular loan, the priority sector, the bank and NBFC can co-originate together, and the draft agreement within less than 30 days you will get a notification for this. It's a good development, building a repo between a bank and NBFC, where NBFC need to have just minimum 20% or anything more than that, of course. And the banks will have, and the rules and regulations are very flexible, very fine. Where we will share the revenues, share the recovery issues, and the sourcing and servicing will be done by NBFCs at a fee to be paid by the banks. These are draft guidelines, but more or less it will be the same. What is the future scenario? FDI norms are getting relaxed. A lot of FDI, because of this norms getting relaxed, a lot of investment. Today, if anybody asks, a lot of funding is coming. Many new NBFCs are coming in. Many foreign players, they will never form the bank. Today they will go for the NBFC sector. They'll invest 5%, 10%, or even 24 or 49% and do it. Even if I talk to institutions, foreign institutions which come in India, or the HNIs, part of the chambers at every place in Delhi and Bombay, they would like to, they're getting 7-8% interest, tax-free return is a great investment. Huge inquiry. This funding on the equity side is not a problem for a genuine NBFC. In fact, I know half a dozen people have left big NBFCs in the last 6 months have started their own NBFCs because of the private equity funds coming in from foreign. RBI getting into activity-based rather than entity-based NBFC, that is, as I said, P2P, account segregator. As I said, they will change the rules of the game. They have to start in a big way, in a structured manner. How far they will succeed, we never know. Whether there will be any scam in this, 100% yes. 100% yes, 5 years down the line. Unless RBI put the stringent norms and executes the norms and supervises it very properly. Otherwise, it's a huge, data bank on which they're working and it's just playing blind on it. For us, it's a problem because if we become part of that P2P as a lender, whether we do that directly or not, it's a different thing. We have a separate seminar which we are doing on P2P, maybe 2 months down the line. I'll send the invitation to all of you. Leasing as it needs to be encouraged for various reasons because many of the foreign players and foreign investment coming in would like to use leasing rather than owning up and borrowing the route as the funding. P2P we discussed. Financial technology is the best thing which is going to happen, and I think perhaps today you will develop on, we have a session on that, data analytics, apart from other, with the financial players, with the mobile banking, like applications for NBFCs or that. Mukesh Gandhi gave example of Bajaj in the morning, the biggest financial player, it's more than a bank. Any retail store, and my colleague was saying, where goes to this, any Croma store, or Big Bazaar, anywhere Bajaj people will be present, you know. It's a great thing happening. So how it is possible? It's sanctioned within minutes and hours, minutes, with the mobile applications. So that's going to be a great changer, and if you and I cannot adopt that, it will be slow growth for us. And there is an intangible asset-based lending based on, you know, there are categories of companies which have now registered with us as giving education loan and health loans. This is again a great thing. Banks have done it in the past, not succeeded, but there are more than 6 companies who have registered FIDC that are doing on the health loans and the education loans. How they do it and how they succeed, they are very good models for that, and we need to look at it. The Prime Minister has been talking about the New India. What is NBFC's role in the Prime Minister's vision for the New India? Number 1, driving financial inclusion for more than 70 years. Innovation and flexibility, which has been always doing, making them acceptable and accessible to all the countrymen. Promoting and encouraging entrepreneurship. As we say, people say we don't have the employment growth. Be an employer, why become an employee? Employ 2, 3, 5, 10 people. That's the thing which is getting and MFI's role, of course, cannot be disregarded. They have done a great role in doing this. You know, small entrepreneurs. People work at home and get the funding from MFIs. Likely to play a key role in MSME financing. I'm telling you, the next 5 years MSME funding will more than double or triple. And we have an enhanced reliability due to a regulation history of 20 years. I said, a harmonized approach with the banks and institutions, terribly good track record, better asset quality, low level of NPA. This is genuinely low. No manipulations here. RBI supervises very well, and we are our own maliks. You know, we don't have any reason to manipulate. For whom we will do it? We are the equity shareholders, and we don't have those reasons to manipulate for any reason. And we have a presumed sustained growth, as I said, between 15 and 30% for the last 5 to 10 years, which is great. You know, it's stable. And every sector, every place, every media, every TV, every seminar where you talk about banks, NBFCs are not always there. In fact, the last 1 year, most of the BFSI awards which were there, NBFCs got, including one from ENY, where we get Bajaj, we got Capital First, we got Manappuram, many. Very encouraging news for the person like you who is always an NBFC person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing all the experiences you have with the NBFCs. We appreciate that. Now, I would like to call upon Mr. Rakesh Kumar, CEO, Knight Microfinance Private Limited, to deliver his speech. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen. Mr. Gandhi has left, but he started the session with a very good tone. Mr. Satish talked about the microfinance industry, and Mr. Thakkar talked about NBFC and in general and microfinance sector in particular. I think it's going to be tea time. Everybody is probably, waiting for that. So I would share my account, my experience of working in the microfinance sector and the challenges and opportunities according to me. I'll just note down some of the very important points which I think should be shared with all of you. Before that, I would like to thank the organizer B2B Infomedia, for getting the opportunity to assemble all of us here and talk about our experience. Be in this side or that side, everybody is experienced, everybody is having fair share of knowledge, and I guess throughout the day we have the opportunity to share about our experience. Thanks B2B for that. And high level, if we talk about the NBFCs, I think beautiful account given by Mr. Thakkar. I would like to point out some of the important points in microfinance. Microfinance, as said by Mr. Satish, that is a very young industry, and the regulation has not even completed, I think, 10 years. 2011-12, RBI was asked to regulate after studying the issues and concerns coming out of Andhra Pradesh crisis. But a lot of changes happened after that. RBI came up with a guideline, though it was restrictive in nature, but then it restored the investors' confidence, standard operation, standard pricing and other operating model across the country, and all the microfinance companies grew till date. So one of the important events, there were dedicated credit information companies introduced as per the RBI guideline, which has definitely helped in managing the risk in the microfinance industry, especially the multiple lending issues were beautifully addressed, though there have been some issues, but then definitely it is much better than what it was before regulation. As there are various data pertaining to the market size, Mr. Satish talked about the quarter-on-quarter 15 to 20% growth. It itself talks about the huge potential of the industry. In addition to that, there has been income rises, lifestyle changes of the borrower we work with, their aspiration. So all these are basically accounting for a huge potential for the industry. There is not only potential available for the existing players, but also new players. There is enough room for everybody to tap the business opportunity. Of course, small finance bank, they have been considered as bank, and gradually they will have to shift their area of focus from the typical low-income household targeted by microfinance. So, in all, there is good opportunity for everybody, and technology has definitely started playing its role, especially after demonetization. Most of the microfinance companies were not focusing on or had less focus on technology, basically digitization, automation. So I think by now, I have been discussing with many lenders, investors, industry experts. They keep talking about that there has been technology focus of the microfinance company, which is basically helping all the companies in addressing the operational issues, mitigating the risk management with that. So most of the companies have started talking about paperless and cashless, and that has started happening. To my knowledge, all the microfinance companies have started at least doing the lending to borrowers' bank account, which is sort of 70% of cashless. And many of the companies have been targeting for how to get the repayments through bank accounts so that the cash part will go away from the business, and that will be a good risk management opportunity. So I would like to point out some of the events which has happened in last 3, 4, 5 years after the industry has been regulated. First of all, the license to 8 microfinance company for small finance bank has been a great booster for the industry. Microfinance industry, which was lesser known 5, 6 years back, has come to the fore. It has been recognized. Government considers it as one of the very important rule of financial inclusion. That's the reason they asked the RBI to regulate the industry. So that has been boosted. Second, there is great opportunity with payment banks. If you look at the NBFCs, there are various kind of NBFCs Mr. Thakkar was talking about. I would say that microfinance company has at one extreme. It is a human-intensive business, very less application of technology in comparison to other NBFCs. So that is one extreme, traditional method of lending. On the other side is fintech, financial technology firms, who are talking about digital lending, data analytics, lending based on data analytics. So that is other extreme, and that is being talked about. But then, given the overall situation, I think it will take time to see the digital lending happening across the country. So, but then given the infrastructure available in the country, given the customer segment, given the consumer behavior. So I think somewhere hybrid model is going to work. So there has been different estimates about the industry size, consumer behavior, digital lending potential. So I guess in days to come, there has been the environment of uncertainty in which direction the NBFCs will move. But definitely, in my opinion, there is a good possibility of collaboration between the NBFCs, MFIs, the traditional financial services company with the fintechs who have been coming up with very good, digital lending model based on basically algorithm. So these are the good opportunity available to all of us. But then we have to keep track of these developments. My personal experience says that there has been and there will be uncertainty, there will be temptation. Amid all these things, as an organization, what should be our focus? So there will be a lot of, I would talk about my experience. We have been into the microfinance for last 9 years. We have been operating in Gujarat and Rajasthan and have planned to go to other parts of the country. When you will talk to investors, lenders, peer companies, so you will face a lot of temptation that we should be growing. One thing I would like to point out that, you should assess, all of us should assess that whether we are ready for growth or not. Just because others are growing, we shouldn't be thinking of growing. And if we are growing without preparation, definitely the quality will suffer, and ultimately it will take more time than the, if we are taking the shortcuts, definitely portfolio quality will suffer and it will come up. So this should be, I think, taken into account while we are. And also there are, when I'm talking from, say, small organization perspective, many companies, if they are not focusing on portfolio quality, control, compliance, then it becomes very difficult to transition from small company to mid or large company. So many of the companies generally get stuck there. So I think that is one of the important learning. Third, we are into financial services, so the crises will keep coming in. So Andhra Pradesh crisis, demonetization crisis, and the business cycle of the industry. So we should always prepare ourselves for these kind of business cycles. How we are, keep evaluating our operating model. How we keep, evaluating our risk management system. How, what kind of, we should be sharing this kind of event, we should trying to take full advantage. We should be sharing our experience so that, we are better prepared for handling the business cycle and, upcoming, maybe, demonetization kind of thing. So that we prepare ourselves, we are much better prepared to handle those crises, then definitely there is no issue. So with this, I would like to end my demonstration. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir. We would like to convey thank you to all our esteemed speakers by presenting them with mementos, and I would humbly request Gautam ji to present the mementos to the dignitaries on the dais, please. Thank you very much, sir. To Mr. P. Satish, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And to Mr. Rakesh Kumar. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was great having you over here and you sharing your experience and their knowledge with us.